My name is Taylor Reed and I'm 32 years old. For 15 years, my wealthy parents treated me like their personal maid, while my younger sister Chloe Reed lived like she was born into royalty. Every holiday, every family gathering, I was stuck in the kitchen cooking and cleaning, while Chloe laughed with guests and soaked up all the attention. But last Christmas Eve, when my mother demanded that I prepare a full dinner for 25 of Chloe's VIP guests, with less than 24 hours' notice, something inside me finally broke. What happened next didn't just change my place in the family. It exposed a truth so shocking that it left everyone speechless, including a powerful CEO who had no idea who I really was. Now let me take you back to that December evening, the one that changed everything. I was in my apartment in Chicago carefully folding clothes into my suitcase when my phone rang. The screen lit up with one word, Mom. I already knew this wasn't going to be a pleasant call. Back at our family home in Lakeview Heights, every surface would have been covered in Christmas decorations, sparkling lights, expensive ornaments, perfectly arranged garlands. I knew because I had been the one decorating that house every single year since I was 17. Taylor, cancel whatever pointless plans you have tomorrow, my mother Diane Reed said the moment I picked up. No greeting, no warmth, just orders. Her voice had that sharp, commanding tone I'd grown up obeying without question. I kept folding my blazer, forcing my voice to stay calm. What's happening tomorrow? Chloe is hosting her networking dinner for Christmas Eve, she said. Very important guests, Taylor. 25 people. Executives from Altura Group will be there. She paused, and I could practically hear the smug smile on her face. You need to be here by noon to start cooking. 7 main dishes, 10 sides. I've already planned the entire menu. My grip tightened around my phone. Of course. Chloe's networking circle. My younger sister worked in PR and never missed a chance to remind everyone how influential she was becoming. Mom, your sister, is building connections that benefit this family, she cut in sharply. You should be grateful you can contribute something. Her words landed exactly where they always did. It's not like you have anything important going on? I glanced at my laptop. An unread email sat glowing on the screen from Evelyn Brooks, CEO of Altura Hospitality. If only my mother had any idea. Use the fine china, she continued. These aren't your usual people, Taylor. These are people who matter. People who matter. Unlike me. I'll text you the menu, she added. Don't embarrass us. The line went dead. I slowly lowered my phone and looked down at the plane ticket on my bed. Chicago to Miami. Departure 8 p.m. tomorrow. This time, my hands weren't shaking. After 15 years, I had finally learned something important. There was a difference between their emergencies and my priorities. Before I tell you how I went from being the invisible daughter to the one they begged for forgiveness, take a second to like and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy stories where justice finds its way back. And I'm curious, where are you watching from? And what time is it there? Right now, I read every single one. What follows contains fictional elements and is supported by artificial intelligence to highlight the human message and emotional experience. Hopefully, you'll find something for yourself. I sat on the edge of my bed, memories crashing over me like a tide I could never quite escape. 15 years of being invisible, except when they needed something from me. Every Thanksgiving since I was 17, it was always the same line. Taylor will handle the cooking while Chloe entertains the guests. Every Christmas, another quiet jab. Taylor's between jobs again, but at least she's useful in the kitchen. At every family gathering, Chloe was introduced with pride, our successful daughter in public relations. Meanwhile, I was an afterthought. Taylor's here too. She's helping out. Helping out. Like I wasn't even a person with a life of my own. The worst night had been Chloe's engagement party. 200 guests at an upscale country club just outside Brookhaven. I had spent 14 hours straight in the kitchen preparing appetizers, while Chloe floated through the room in a $3,000 designer dress our parents proudly paid for. I still remember one of the guests smiling politely at me and asking what I did for a living. Before I could even answer, my mother laughed. Taylor doesn't really have Chloe's social skills, but she's a great cook. I didn't correct her. I never did. Instead, I stood there holding a tray of hors d'oeuvres, feeling like I was shrinking right in front of them. Back in my apartment, I pushed myself up and walked to my closet, pulling out my second suitcase. Inside, carefully sealed in a leather folder, was the one thing that changed everything: my contract. The name Reed Signature Events was embossed across the top in gold lettering. I had chosen that name very carefully. No family ties, no shortcuts, no borrowed reputation. For 5 years, I had built everything in silence. 50 employees across 3 cities. A client list that included luxury resorts, celebrity weddings, and major corporate events. And tomorrow, while my family expected me to stand in their kitchen like always, I had a meeting that would secure a $2 million contract. My phone buzzed. A text from Chloe. Mom says you're cooking tomorrow. Don't mess it up. These people actually matter. I stared at the message, then slowly looked down at my plane ticket again. Flight 447 to Miami. Departure at 8 p.m. A quiet laugh escaped my lips. Not this time. For once, they were going to have to figure things out without me. I kept packing, the irony settling deep in my chest. There had been signs. Clear ones. I had just ignored them for too long. The first sign was how they introduced me. At last month's country club dinner, my father had leaned over to his golf partner and said it so casually, it barely registered to anyone else. Chloe is our success story. Taylor's still figuring things out. Still figuring things out. That's what he told people? That same morning, I had signed a contract worth $500,000. But in their version of my life, I was unemployed, directionless, failing. They never asked what I actually did, never questioned how I paid for my condo in downtown Chicago, or how I managed to drive a car nicer than theirs. Their assumptions were so deeply rooted that the one time I casually mentioned traveling for work, my mother had laughed. What work? Are you calling that little cooking hobby of yours a business? I didn't argue. I never did. The second sign had been even harder to ignore. Last summer, I came home for a visit and walked into my childhood bedroom only to find it completely unrecognizable. My bed was gone. My desk was gone. Every trace of me had been erased. Boxes were stacked against the walls, filled with Chloe's extra clothes, shoes, and designer bags. My trophies, my books. The pieces of my life that once meant something had been shoved into storage in the basement. When I asked about it, my mother barely looked up from her phone. Chloe needed more space. She's building her image. That matters in her field. Meanwhile, Chloe had taken over the entire 3rd floor. Renovated, customized, a home office, a walk-in closet, everything paid for without hesitation. The message was unmistakable. One daughter was an investment. The other was disposable. I zipped my suitcase shut and leaned back for a moment, thinking about the company holiday party just a week ago. My team had surprised me. 50 people in one room celebrating the Altura account we had just secured. People who respected me. People who saw me. My phone buzzed again. Another message from my mother. Don't forget the truffle oil. These guests have refined taste. Refined taste. As if I didn't regularly design menus for CEOs, celebrities, and luxury brands. But how would she know she had never once asked? That was the part that hurt the most. Not the insults. Not the assumptions. The complete lack of curiosity. In 5 years, no one in my family had ever asked me a simple question. Taylor, what do you actually do? Instead, they created their own version of me. Taylor can't hold down a job. Taylor lives in a tiny apartment. Taylor is probably living off leftover money from grandma. In reality, that money had been the seed I used to build everything. At least she can cook. I had 3 executive chefs working under me. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my photos. There I was, shaking hands with the mayor at a charity gala my company catered. There was my team celebrating the opening of our 3rd location. There was the magazine feature calling me one of the quiet disruptors in luxury event design. None of those moments had ever been shared with my family. I had learned early on that my success without their approval made them uncomfortable. The one time I tried to tell them about landing a major client, my mother had immediately redirected the conversation to Chloe's latest PR campaign for some new energy drink. "At least you're useful in the kitchen," she had said, patting my hand like I was a child who had done something mildly impressive. I opened my laptop and pulled up my company dashboard. Reed Signature Events. Built from nothing. No family money. No connections. No shortcuts. Tomorrow's deal alone would generate more revenue than Chloe earned in 6 months, but they would never know that. A message from my assistant flashed on the screen. "Forbes wants to feature you in their 40 Under 40 issue. They're especially interested in how you built everything without family support." Without family support. If only they understood the full story. It wasn't just that my family didn't support me, they chose not to see me at all. And if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, like your achievements didn't matter, no matter how hard you worked, then you already understand why I made the decision I did next. Tell me in the comments if you've ever had to hide your success from people who were supposed to support you. I read every single one. And if this story resonates with you, consider subscribing. Because what happened next changed everything. We're building a community of people who refuse to let others dim their light. And then came the message that changed everything. My phone buzzed with a calendar reminder and reality hit me all at once. If I stayed silent and played my role in that house tomorrow, I wouldn't just lose another holiday. I would lose everything I had spent years building. The Altura hospitality contract wasn't just another deal. It was the deal. $2 million. Exclusive catering rights across 5 luxury resorts in Florida. A partnership that would take Reed Signature Events from a respected regional company to a national force. The meeting was set for December 26th at 9 a.m. non-negotiable. Evelyn Brooks, Altura's CEO, had made that very clear. "I'm flying to Singapore on the 27th, she had told me. "Taylor, if we don't finalize this in person, the board will move forward with our second option." Our second option. My biggest competitor. The one who had been circling this contract for months, waiting for me to slip. But this wasn't just about me anymore. 50 people were depending on that deal. Elena, my head chef, had just put an offer on her first house, trusting that this expansion would go through. Marcus, my operations manager, was planning to move his kids into a better school district. This wasn't just my dream. It had become theirs. I opened my financial report, staring at the numbers. I was successful, yes. But this contract would change everything. It was the difference between being good and becoming unstoppable. My phone rang. It was Daniel, my CFO. "Taylor, just confirming you'll be at the resort tomorrow evening for the pre-meeting dinner with Evelyn's team." I glanced at my packed suitcase. "I'll be there." "Good," he said. Evelyn specifically mentioned she's excited to meet the CEO who built something this big without family money or connections. I almost smiled. If only she knew how true that was. Another notification appeared. An email from my mother. Subject line: Urgent Christmas Eve menu. I hesitated before opening it. 7 main courses, 10 sides, detailed dietary restrictions, wine pairings, dessert plating instructions. She had planned everything down to the last garnish. Use the crystal set, use the engraved silver. These guests matter, Taylor. One of them is Evelyn Brooks from Altura Hospitality. She could be very important for Chloe's future. I froze. My eyes scanned the attached guest list, and there it was. Evelyn Brooks. CEO, Altura Hospitality. My heart started pounding. The same woman I was scheduled to meet in Florida was going to be sitting at my parents' dining table, expecting to be served by the daughter they believed was unemployed. Another message came in from Chloe. Mom says Evelyn Brooks will be there. She's a huge deal. I'm planning to pitch her PR services. Don't embarrass me with your amateur cooking. Amateur cooking. I had catered a private retreat for Altura's executive team just last month. 500 guests. But everything had been handled through my staff. Evelyn had never met me in person. That meeting was supposed to happen tomorrow. I sat down slowly, the weight of everything pressing down on me at once. Stay. Cook. Pretend to be nothing. Serve the very woman who could change my life. Or leave. Risk everything with my family. And finally claim the future I had built for myself. A notification lit up my screen. Your ride to the airport is scheduled for 6:30 p.m. I looked at the menu. Then at the contract. Then at my plane ticket. The answer was already there. Clear. Simple. Unavoidable. I picked up my phone and called my mother. She answered immediately. I was starting to think you weren't taking this seriously, she said. Mom, I can't do it. There was silence on the other end. Then her voice sharpened instantly. What do you mean you can't? I have a business trip. I'm flying to Florida tonight. Don't be ridiculous, she snapped, her voice rising. What business could you possibly have? An important meeting. She actually laughed. Taylor, stop being selfish. Your sister needs this. Chloe has access to plenty of catering companies, I said calmly. With what money, she shot back. Do you have any idea how expensive that is? I pressed my lips together, holding back the irony. She was lecturing me about catering costs, while talking to someone who owned a catering company. Family comes first, she continued sharply. Or are you too selfish to understand that I understand perfectly? I said, my voice steady. Family comes first when you need something from me. How dare you? When was the last time you asked about my life, Mom? We know about your life, she replied immediately. You're between jobs, living in that tiny apartment. I took a slow breath. I'm a CEO. Another laugh. This one colder. A CEO of what, some imaginary company you made up? It's not imaginary. I have 50 employees. Taylor, enough with the fantasies. Chloe needs this, she continued. You owe us. I owe you, I repeated quietly. You raised me, fed me, and treated me like hired help my entire life. You're being dramatic, she snapped. What else do you have to do? Sit alone in your apartment on Christmas. My eyes drifted to the ticket lying on my bed. I have a flight at 8. Cancel it. No. Her voice dropped colder than before. If you walk out on this family, don't bother coming back. The words hung in the air between us. She had used that threat before. And every time it worked. Every time I stayed. But not this time. Then I guess this is goodbye, I said quietly. You can't be serious. I'm done being the family servant, I said. I'm done being invisible until you need something. You ungrateful, I ended the call. My hands were shaking. But for the first time in 15 years, it wasn't fear. It was something else. Freedom. Almost instantly, my phone exploded with messages. Chloe. What did you just do? Mom is losing it. Stop being dramatic and get over here. I turned my phone off and went back to packing. They would figure it out. They always did when they had no choice. A few minutes later, I turned my phone back on. It rang immediately. Taylor. What is wrong with you? Chloe's voice came through sharp and frantic. Mom is calling everyone saying you've completely lost it. I have a business meeting on Christmas Eve, I said. Stop lying. I'm not lying. This is about that stupid argument last month, isn't it? She snapped. When Mom gave me your room? My room was turned into your closet years ago, Chloe, I said calmly. And no, this isn't about that. This is about my actual career. What career? She snapped. You cook sometimes. I own a catering company. Sure you do. Her voice was dripping with sarcasm. Look, I'll pay you. How does $200 sound? I almost laughed. My personal chef rate started at $5,000 a day. But she would never know that. This isn't negotiable, Chloe. I'm not coming. Mom is going to disown you. That's her choice. You're really going to ruin Christmas? You're going to ruin my networking opportunity. Evelyn Brooks is going to be there. Then hire a caterer. On Christmas Eve, she scoffed. Are you insane? No one is available. I walked over to my kitchen counter where I had left a small notepad earlier that day. On it, I had written down 3 catering companies that specialized in last-minute emergency bookings, along with their 24-hour contact numbers. It was more than they deserved, but I wasn't completely heartless. I left a note with some options. I said, I'm not driving all the way to your place for a stupid note. Then look up emergency catering services yourself. You're being selfish. I'm being professional. What professional? She shouted. Stop pretending you're something you're not. A notification popped up on my phone. Your driver will arrive in 2 hours. I have to go, I said. If you walk out on this, you're dead to us. I paused for a second, then answered quietly. I'm already invisible to you. What's the difference? I ended the call and turned off my phone completely. The silence that followed felt unfamiliar, peaceful. I placed the note with the catering numbers neatly on the kitchen counter, making sure it was easy to see in case anyone actually came by. Next to it, I set down one more thing. My business card. Taylor Reed. CEO Reed Signature Events. They wouldn't come. They wouldn't notice. But at least I knew I had tried, even as I finally chose myself. The plane took off at exactly 8:07 p.m. As the city lights faded beneath me, I leaned back in my seat and let out a breath I didn't realize I had been holding for years. Somewhere down there, my mother was probably calling every relative she knew, telling them how I had ruined Christmas, how I had abandoned the family. I opened my laptop and pulled up the Altura contract again. Clause 15, CEO presence required for all strategic planning sessions. Evelyn had insisted on that clause herself. If you agree that I was right to get on that plane and finally choose myself instead of being treated like a servant, drop a 1 in the comments. I want to know how many of you would have made the same choice. CEO presence required for all strategic planning sessions. Evelyn had insisted on that clause herself. She only worked with founders who were directly involved, not hidden behind teams or assistants. My inbox filled with new emails as the plane Wi-Fi connected. 17 messages from Evelyn's team, all confirming the schedule. Pre-meeting dinner at 7 p.m. Formal presentation at 9 a.m. on December 26th. Contract signing immediately after pending final approval. I opened her latest message. Looking forward to finally meeting you in person, Taylor. I've been following the growth of Reed Signature Events for the past 2 years. Your reputation speaks for itself. My reputation. If only she knew that the same woman she was about to partner with was expected to be standing in my parents' kitchen right now cooking for her. A message from my assistant came through. Forbes is asking if they can include details about your family background. They're interested in the built from nothing without family support angle. I typed back quickly. The article goes live, December 27th, right? Yes. Midnight on the 26th. Perfect. By the time my family discovered who I really was, the contract would already be signed, and the entire world would know the truth. I opened the draft Forbes had sent me. The headline made me pause. From invisible to unstoppable. How Taylor Reed built a luxury event empire without family support. I let out a quiet breath. The timing almost felt intentional. When I arrived at the Altura Resort, the suite took my breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the ocean waves rolling endlessly under the fading evening light. A bottle of champagne sat on ice with a handwritten note. "Welcome, Ms. Reed. Looking forward to our partnership. Evelyn Brooks." I set my bags down and checked my phone. 47 missed calls from my mother, 18 from Chloe, even 3 from my father who rarely ever reached out. I deleted every voicemail without listening. Instead, I opened my email. My PR manager had sent the final proof of the Forbes article. "They moved you to the cover story. You'll be on every newsstand December 27th. The cover. My photo. Confident. Composed. Nothing like the invisible version of me my family believed existed. The article detailed everything. How I started with $5,000 saved from waitressing. How I built Reed's signature events without investors. How I refused to use my family name or connections. Another message came in from Evelyn. "Taylor. I'll be arriving late to tomorrow's dinner. I'm coming straight from a social obligation in Brookhaven. Hope that's all right." Brookhaven. She was at my parents' house right now, probably standing in that same dining room wondering why the elaborate dinner she had been promised didn't exist. My assistant texted again. "The Forbes reporter wants to know if you'll include your family's reaction in the article." I thought about it for a moment. Tell them my family will find out when everyone else does, when the magazine is released. "That's cold," my assistant replied. "I love it." I walked over to the window watching the ocean move in steady, powerful waves. In 12 hours I would sign the biggest deal of my life. In 36 hours my face would be everywhere, and my family would finally see the truth they had refused to look at for years. Sometimes the most powerful form of revenge isn't revenge at all. It's success they never saw coming. While I slept peacefully in that suite, everything back home was falling apart. The next morning, I scrolled through the messages I had ignored. The story was clear. By 6 o'clock on Christmas Eve, my mother had realized I wasn't coming. The kitchen was untouched. The refrigerator still full of basic ingredients. And 25 guests were arriving within the hour. The messages from Chloe told the entire story without me needing to hear a single voicemail. "Mom is freaking out. She's calling every restaurant within 50 miles. Everything is closed. How could you do this to us?" A few minutes later, my father texted, "Your mother is having a breakdown. Please reconsider." I stared at the screen for a moment, then locked it. By 7 o'clock, the guests had already started arriving. Executives, investors, PR professionals, and most importantly, Evelyn Brooks, CEO of Altura Hospitality. They walked into that house expecting a flawless Christmas Eve dinner, the kind my mother had been bragging about for weeks. At 7:23 p.m., another message came in. "We're ordering pizza." Then another. "Pizza Taylor. Do you understand what you've done?" At 7:47 p.m., Chloe sent another update. "Mom is telling everyone you're unreliable. She's blaming you for everything." I could almost picture it. My mother standing in that perfectly decorated dining room, scrambling to maintain control, while everything slipped through her fingers. The pizza arrived at 8:15. 5 boxes from one place, 3 from another. Even that had to be split because no single restaurant could handle the order on such short notice. The same woman who had spent weeks bragging about her daughter's cooking was now placing greasy cardboard boxes onto imported crystal plates. More messages followed faster this time. "Evelyn Brooks looks disgusted. People are starting to leave. Mom just told everyone you're mentally unstable. She said you've always been the disappointment of the family." I read that line twice, and for the first time, it didn't hurt. At 9:33 p.m., the final message came through. "It's over. Everyone left early. Evelyn didn't even stay for dessert. Mom says you're dead to her." I set my phone down slowly. Then I ordered breakfast through room service. In a few hours, I would be sitting across from the same woman who had just witnessed that disaster. I wondered if she would mention it. I wondered if she would recognize my last name. But more than anything, I wondered what my mother's face would look like when she finally understood who I really was. That evening, I arrived early at the Altura resort for the pre-meeting dinner. I wore my best suit. Calm, composed, ready. This was the moment everything I had built was leading toward. What I didn't expect was for Evelyn Brooks to walk in carrying a story from the night before. Taylor, she greeted me warmly, though there was a trace of exhaustion in her voice. I need to apologize for being late. She gave a small shake of her head. I just came from the most bizarre Christmas Eve party I've ever experienced. My pulse stayed steady. I simply smiled. What happened? I had prepared myself for this exact moment. Oh, what happened? I asked calmly. She let out a short laugh, shaking her head as she sat down. You won't believe this, she said. I was invited to what was supposed to be an elegant Christmas Eve dinner. The hostess, Diane Reed, actually the same last name as you, funny coincidence, promised this incredible meal prepared by her daughter. I nodded slightly, keeping my expression neutral. We arrived and it was complete chaos, she continued. No food. Empty kitchen. And the hostess running around trying to order pizza. She gave me a look of disbelief. Pizza? For a room full of executives she had been trying to impress for months. That sounds uncomfortable, I said. It gets worse, Evelyn replied. She spent the entire evening talking about her older daughter, calling her unreliable, unstable, a complete disappointment. My fingers rested lightly on the edge of my folder, steady. Apparently, this daughter was supposed to cook everything and just disappeared. Evelyn pulled out her phone and turned it toward me. Someone had taken a picture during the party. My mother stood in the center of the room, her face tight with forced composure, pizza boxes spread across the dining table she was so proud of. Chloe stood beside her, trying to recover the situation, smiling too hard, talking too fast. It was a disaster, Evelyn said. The younger daughter even tried to pitch me PR services while serving pizza on plates that probably cost more than most people's rent. I almost smiled. Did you stay long? I asked. About 20 minutes after the food arrived, she said. The hostess was so focused on blaming the absent daughter that she forgot how to host entirely. She paused, searching for the right words. It was the most unprofessional evening I've ever experienced. Then she added, almost as an afterthought. She actually said her daughter was too incompetent to hold a real job, so she usually just cooked for them. I kept my posture relaxed, my expression composed. That's terrible, I said. I can't imagine treating family like that. Evelyn nodded, already moving on as she picked up the menu. Let's talk about something more interesting. Your company. The conversation shifted, but something inside me had already shifted too. Because I knew what was coming next. And if you were in my place, I want to know what you would have done. Would you have revealed the truth right then in that moment, or would you have waited for the perfect time to let everything unfold? Tell me in the comments. I read them all. And if this story is hitting close to home, make sure you subscribe. There's more coming, and trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. The following morning, December 26th, I stood inside Altura's boardroom. The contract was laid out in front of me. My presentation was sharp, precise, flawless. Everything was going exactly as planned. Until the door opened. Evelyn's assistant stepped in holding an iPad. Ms. Brooks, you need to see this, he said. A photo from that party last night is going viral on LinkedIn. Evelyn took the tablet. I watched her expression change. Curiosity, confusion, and then shock. She looked up at me, then back at the screen, then at me again. Taylor, she said slowly, this photo, from the Reed house in Brookhaven. She turned the iPad toward me. Someone had posted a picture taken from my parents' living room, a family photo from last Thanksgiving. I was standing in the background, barely noticeable. Chloe stood front and center between our parents, smiling like she always did. Is this you? Evelyn asked. I nodded. Yes. And Diane Reed? Is your mother? Yes. The room went completely still. Evelyn's team exchanged looks. Her legal advisor slowly set his pen down on the table. The woman who called you unreliable, unstable, and a failure, she said carefully. That's your mother, yes. Evelyn stood up and walked toward the window, then turned back to face me. You were supposed to cook that dinner. The one that turned into that disaster. I was, I said. But I chose to be here instead. You chose this meeting. Over that, I chose my business over being treated like a servant. She studied me for a moment, then glanced back at her phone. Your mother said you don't have a job. That you're basically useless outside of cooking. She doesn't know about my company. Your own mother doesn't know you're a CEO. She never asked. Evelyn slowly sat back down. Let me make sure I understand this, she said. Your family has no idea that you run one of the most successful catering companies in this region? None. They don't know about your team. Your multiple locations. This contract we're about to sign. They think I'm unemployed and barely getting by. One of her partners leaned forward. I need to understand this clearly, he said. The same woman who was serving pizza last night has no idea her daughter could have executed that entire event at a 5-star level. I shook my head. She's never cared enough to find out what I do. It's easier for her to believe I failed. For a second, there was silence. Then Evelyn started laughing. Not a polite laugh, not a restrained one, a real, stunned, almost disbelieving laugh. Oh my God, she said. She spent the entire evening talking about her disappointing daughter. She looked straight at me. And that daughter is you, the CEO I've been trying to partner with for the past 2 years. She turned to her team. I think this might be the most ironic business deal I've ever been part of. Then she picked up her phone again. I need to check something, she said, typing quickly. Within seconds the results appeared. Oh wow, she murmured, turning the screen toward everyone. The first link was my feature in a leading hospitality magazine. The second was my nomination for a major culinary award. The third was a national business article highlighting female founders. Your family doesn't know about any of this. Before I could answer, the door opened again. Evelyn's assistant rushed in holding another device. Ms. Brooks, you need to see this. Forbes just released their 40 Under 40 preview for tomorrow. He connected it to the screen, and there I was. Professional, confident, impossible to ignore. The headline filled the room. From invisible to unstoppable, how Taylor Reed built a multi-million-dollar event empire without family support. Evelyn read part of the article out loud. Reed 32 built her company from a $5,000 starting point into a nationally recognized brand, deliberately avoiding any reliance on family connections. She lowered the tablet and looked at me. This goes live tonight at midnight, yes. And your family still has no idea. They'll find out the same way everyone else does. One of the executives let out a low whistle. Your mother is about to see her unemployed daughter on the cover of Forbes. Evelyn's assistant kept scrolling. It says here you have a waiting list of 6 months for bookings. 8 during peak season, I corrected. Evelyn stood up suddenly. I need to make a call. She stepped outside the room. We could see her through the glass, speaking quickly, her expression sharp and focused. A few minutes later, she came back in. There was a strange smile on her face. I just spoke to Diane Reed, she said. My stomach tightened. You did what I told her. I was extremely disappointed with last night's event and that I would be taking my business elsewhere. I didn't say anything. She immediately blamed everything on her older daughter. Evelyn continued. Said you were the problem. Of course she did. Evelyn tilted her head slightly. Then I told her something else. The room went quiet again. I told her I had just finalized a $2 million partnership with the most impressive entrepreneur I've met in years. She asked who Evelyn said. And I told her. She looked directly at me. Your daughter, Taylor Reed, CEO of Reed's Signature Events. No one spoke. The sound she made, Evelyn added softly, was like the air left her lungs all at once. I glanced down at my phone. 47 missed calls, all within the last few minutes. Evelyn extended her hand across the table. Ms. Reed, she said with a smile. Shall we make this official? I took her hand. Moments later, my signature was on the contract. $2 million. A partnership that would change everything. Champagne was poured. Conversations filled the room. And my phone kept vibrating nonstop. I finally stepped away to check the messages. The first one I opened was from my father. Your mother just fainted. What is Reed Signature Events? My phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Message after message flooded the screen. Mom, answer your phone now. Chloe, is this some kind of sick joke, Dad? Your mother is hysterical. Please call. Chloe again. Evelyn Brooks just told everyone you're a CEO. Mom. This is cruel. Taylor pretending to be successful just to humiliate us. I stared at the messages for a second, then walked back into the boardroom where Evelyn and her team were still celebrating. My family thinks I'm lying, I said quietly. They think I made all of this up. Evelyn's eyes lit up with something almost mischievous. Would you like me to fix that? Before I could answer, she had already lifted her phone. She took a photo of me standing beside the signed contract, champagne glasses raised, her executive team surrounding us. Then she started typing. I just posted it, she said, looking up. LinkedIn. Within seconds, notifications began pouring in. The post announced our partnership, tagged Reed's Signature Events, Altura Hospitality, and even included my full name. Comments started appearing almost instantly. Industry leaders I had worked with for years congratulated me publicly. Former clients shared their experiences. The momentum was immediate and undeniable. My phone rang again. Chloe. I answered, putting it on speaker with Evelyn's approval. This can't be real, Chloe said, her voice shaking. It is. You've been a CEO this whole time for 5 years. Why didn't you tell us? I didn't hesitate. You never asked. You decided who I was and treated me accordingly. There was a pause. Mom is losing it, she said. She's calling everyone, trying to explain. Everyone saw that post. That's not my problem anymore. How can you be so cold? I looked around the room. At Evelyn. At her team. At people who had never once questioned my worth. I'm not cold, I said calmly. I'm done. Done with what I'm done being invisible unless you need something. I'm done being the family disappointment. I'm done pretending to be less than I am just to make you comfortable. But we're family, she said, almost pleading now. Family doesn't treat each other like servants. Silence. Call me when you're ready to talk to Taylor Reed, the CEO, I added softly. Not Taylor the cook. I ended the call. Evelyn raised her glass. To boundaries, she said. We all toasted. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel overlooked. I felt seen. That night, I finally called my mother back. She answered immediately. How could you do this to us? She cried. Do what? Humiliate us, she said. Evelyn Brooks told everyone about your company. People are calling, asking why we didn't know our own daughter was successful. You never asked about my life, I said. We knew enough, she replied defensively. You cooked sometimes. You assumed I was a failure. For 5 years you introduced me as unemployed, I continued. You never once asked what I actually do. You should have told us. I tried, I said. 3 years ago I mentioned landing a major client. You changed the subject to Chloe's PR campaign. Silence. I left catering contacts at my apartment, I added. You could have saved the party. We don't even have a key to your place. You've never asked to visit, I said. You don't even know where I live. That silence lasted longer. I employ 50 people, I continued. I run multiple locations. I've been featured in major publications. And you still chose to believe I was nothing. We're your family, she said weakly. My family needed a servant, I replied. My business needs a CEO. I chose my business. This is about revenge. No, I said. This is about self-respect. I took a breath. I built everything without you. No money. No connections. Not even your belief in me. What do you want from us? She asked. Nothing. That was the truth. For the first time in my life, I don't need anything from you. I paused before adding one more thing. The Forbes article goes live tonight. You should prepare yourself. You told them about us. I told them the truth. I could hear my father's voice in the background trying to calm her down. Then she snapped again. You've destroyed this family. No, I said quietly. I finally built my own life. And then I ended the call. For the first time in years, I felt lighter. And this time, I wasn't looking back. Within 48 hours, everything changed. Not for me. For them. The fallout hit my family fast and hard, spreading through their social circle like wildfire. Chloe's messages told the story before anyone else did. Altura just canceled our PR pitch. Evelyn said they don't work with people who lack integrity. That alone cost her firm hundreds of thousands in potential revenue. Another message followed. Mom was removed from the charity board. They said it was unrelated, but everyone knows why. Then another. Dad's golf friends keep asking how he didn't know his own daughter was a millionaire. The Forbes article went live exactly at midnight, just as planned, and it spread faster than I expected. The headline alone was enough to spark attention, but one line buried in the article hit harder than anything else. My family assumed I was unemployed. It was easier to build an empire in silence than to fight their assumptions. That sentence traveled. And it took their reputation down with it. For the first time in years, my father called me directly. Not a message, not through someone else. A real call. Taylor. He said, his voice quieter than I remembered. I need to say something. I didn't interrupt. I knew you were doing something with catering, he admitted. A few years ago, I saw some documents when the mail got mixed up. But your mother was so certain about who you were. He paused. I didn't challenge it. I should have. Why didn't you? I asked. Because it was easier to let her version of you exist, he said. And I see now. That made me just as responsible. It was the most honest thing he had said to me in years. Your success is extraordinary, he continued. And we missed all of it, because we weren't willing to look. I stayed quiet for a moment before answering. You didn't miss it, I said. You chose not to see it. He didn't argue. Your mother has lost multiple positions already, he went on. Chloe is losing clients. People are questioning everything. That's not my doing, I said calmly. No, he admitted. It's ours. He exhaled slowly. That dinner. It's already become a story everyone is talking about. Diane Reed, who prided herself on hosting flawless events serving delivery pizza, while her daughter was signing a multi-million-dollar contract across the country. For a moment I felt something unexpected. Not guilt. Just distance. I never wanted to hurt anyone, I said. You didn't, he replied. We hurt ourselves. That was the truth. They built a narrative where Chloe was the success, and I was the failure. And now the truth had exposed everything. I'm sorry, he added quietly. I should have done better. I nodded, even though he couldn't see it. Maybe I said. After the call ended, I stood by the window looking out at the city below. My life was moving forward faster than ever. The Forbes feature had opened doors I hadn't even imagined. My inbox was flooded with opportunities, partnerships, invitations, speaking requests. And Evelyn. She became one of my strongest allies, introducing me to people who saw my value immediately. 3 new contracts came from those introductions alone. Together, they were worth over $10 million. I hired 20 new employees within weeks, promoted Elena to executive chef, elevated Marcus to COO. During one of our expansion meetings, Elena said something that stayed with me. "You built this company for people like us," she said. "People who were overlooked." She was right. Without realizing it, I had surrounded myself with people who knew exactly what it felt like to be underestimated. And together we had built something unstoppable. A message came through from my assistant. "Your story is everywhere. Food Network wants to talk about a documentary." I smiled faintly, but the moment that stayed with me the most came a few days later. An invitation. Cornell School of Hotel Administration, my dream school. The one my parents once told me was too ambitious for someone like me. The topic of my speech was simple: building success without permission. As I reviewed my notes, my phone lit up again. A message from my mother. "We need to talk. Please." I stared at it for a long time. Then I archived it and went back to planning my future. I used to believe that being patient and quiet would eventually make people see my worth, but I learned that silence often teaches others to overlook you. Choosing myself wasn't easy, and it didn't feel heroic in the moment. It felt terrifying. But it was necessary. Real respect doesn't come from waiting. It comes from setting boundaries and standing by them even when it costs you something. If you were in my place, would you have stayed to keep the peace, or walked away to protect your future? I'm really curious. Did you stay with me until the end of this story? Thank you for listening. And if this story made you think differently, even just a little, consider subscribing, leaving a comment, or sharing it. One simple action from you might help someone else find the courage to choose themselves too.